Wonderful. Christine, I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you for joining us along in Chrism and just sharing some of your heart and wisdom. Just so grateful for that.
Thank you, Alex, for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited for what you guys are doing. So thank you.
Yes, of course. I would love first just to hear for a little bit from your heart of what's the Lord been doing in your life recently.
Um, has me in a season of waiting, to be honest. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, teaching me a lot of patience and surrender.
Mm.
Aren't we all? But feel particularly like he has me in this moment of every day drawing closer in like trust and surrender to his will. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of waiting.
Mhm.
Um, and the nation spiritual exercises actually I just reflected on and it particularly speaks to that he's doing, and it is that Holy Saturday feeling, where you're just waiting, knowing that he's there doing something, and yeah,
Mhm.
just waiting for him. So that's kind of what kind of stirring that I feel like he's got me in right now. So
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think, yeah, I think we can all deeply relate some part of our hearts of what waiting feels like.
right. Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited to have you here with your background as a health coach and a spiritual director, and just how you show up to people, and us to dive in a little bit of moving into kind of like practicals that would be helpful for priests that we work with and what they find.
Hmm.
Um, so, if we could start there, looking into when you're accompanying people and who are wanting to make, um, I'll just say any changes in their health, be it nutrition or exercise, like what do you find as common obstacles that come from that time?
Yeah. um a lot of times it seems like it kind of falls into two different camps, right? Two different things that usually rise up a lot in people. And the first of that being is usually biting off more than we can chew, right? We tend to set like big goals. And so I think when we go into making any of these changes for ourselves, holistically, as you mentioned, whether it's exercise or eating or anything, mind, body, and soul, after prayerful discernment, we usually sometimes we can get this excitement build when we feel like we're gonna embark on a wonderful change, and that's beautiful and it's good. And I think we come up with this great grand idea, and sometimes we can lose ourselves in that bigness of it, and we forget that it's the small steps that get us there. And
Mhm.
so I think that's a big, huge stumbling block, to be honest, for a lot of people is setting up our ambitions too high and not realizing that it's God is in the little small steps that we take every day. So holding those big dreams that we have for change, it's a both and, right? Holding those along with what's going to be the steps that's going to take to get me there.
Mhm.
So practically speaking, if it's exercise, let's say, and you're like, oh, I recognize that God's calling me to move a little bit more. I need some movement into my daily life. And so we may think, great, I'm going to do like a 5K, or I'm going to start, wonderful, beautiful goal, right? And so if you are not appreciating maybe the season that you're in right now, and you start out setting that goal too high and thinking, I'm going to walk a mile every day, and time comes down and it's not like you can actually fit that in. God does not, it's looking for those small, kind of out of the box moments to keep working on that movement goal. So it
Mhm.
could be just parking, starting with a small step of just parking the furthest spot out, right, in the parking lot when you go somewhere. Maybe it's just taking an extra lap around the school or the rectory or your house or wherever it may be, to get some movement and get some, little baby steps, because
Mhm.
God's in those things too, and not just in like a big thing. Um,
Mhm.
he's in both. And so I think that's one misconception. And the other one is kind of goes hand in hand with that. When you set up those smaller steps, you can feel some progress. A lot of times when we don't feel progress, then that comes to the other kind of misconception is then we get hard on ourselves, right? When we don't make progress and we beat ourselves up if we did not reach the thing or the goal or whatever it is that we have made or set for ourselves. And so I think that some of the danger is when we set it and we focus only too much on the big, then the minute we don't do the thing, then I'm just going to quit. I'm just going to, this was a silly idea. Like, what was I thinking? The pride steps in, right? Like, and all of those things. And so I think when we start to take a look at, God gives us his mercies new every day. And so if we can look at those little ways and little moments that he's calling us to change, mind, body, and soul, and taking those little opportunities as we see them, then we can keep working. And if we have a stumbling block, it's okay. We can foresee, we know that we just like we do in other areas of our life, right? We're going to fall, but we can get back up and we can try again. And so, practically again with food, if we set up that we're going to eat better, I'm going to eliminate my junk food. And if we go into that with that big, huge goal, that the minute we eat something, in a moment of maybe our self-perceived weakness, like a candy bar or something, when we told ourselves we weren't going to do that, how often do we beat ourselves up then?
Mhm.
But if we flip that and we're like, today I'm going to eliminate this one snack I have every day at like 3 o'clock and
Mhm.
one baby step. And then
Mhm.
we always build from that and see how God's calling us to continually improve ourselves, mind, body, and soul. And so those two things tend to be, setting up big goals too big and then actually falling apart when they don't go as planned. And so I think we can help set ourselves up better by looking at the small little things that he's calling us to do, maybe the out of the ordinary ways every day.
Yes, that's so good. And I'm just thinking about our work in Chrism doing a lot with temperaments and like how we
Mhm.
kind of are just more naturally going to show up in scenarios, especially in goal setting, right? How are we more naturally going to? So the parts of me that show up are the like, oh, I'm totally like the sanguine choleric that I'm like these big ideals and I'm so excited and I go and I build and it's not always what's helpful. And so to like recalibrate in that. And one of the things I heard you speak a lot into like more like implicitly was like there's a lot of self-compassion in what you just said, right? Of the like reworking goals for what works for you and like beginning again. So could you speak into that a little bit of the like when someone is like working through realigning goals, what
Mhm.
that could look like and like even to talk, I'm just imagining if the priest is listening to this and being like, man, like I just have to park in the back of the parking lot. Is that, like the kind of what they might be struggling with of like that feels small, you know?
Yeah,
Get into that a little bit.
yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned temperaments because I was just kind of reflecting on that lately and reading more about how that does affect our outlook on how we handle different challenges, right?
Mhm.
And so I think playing upon both our strengths and recognizing our weaknesses in those areas, not from a place of judgment, but more from a place of that self compassion and ways that God is calling us to grow in that and to um, identify ways that we can allow Him to work through us in that weakness, right? When I am
Mhm.
weak, He is strong. And so, um, specifically like with goals and stuff like that, when you ask that question, it's looking at how can I accomplish when I have done that self-reflection, that deep work, that kind of interior work to see where God is calling me to be more whole, holy, healthy. Um, what is something small I can do today? And so playing on that temperament, if it seems small, knowing that you can't build mountains without like just taking one step. You can't climb that mountain without one step at a time. And so it's always easier to build upon that than it is to have to try to look at yourself and say, okay, this was that whole beating up mentality, right? Like this was a bad idea. I shouldn't have done this. And so I think a lot of deep reflection goes into goals, more so than I think what people can sometimes think. I think we too quickly see a goal that maybe somebody else did, or that, oh, this person's doing a thing, or whatever. And I want to do that thing. I want to be that. I want to accomplish that. And not that there's not beauty in some of those accomplishments, but what is God calling me to do? What does that look like for me, given my temperament, given my strengths, given my weaknesses?
Mhm.
So, for example, activity, some people may say, oh, that's great. This person runs or whatever. I would love to run. And after reflection, maybe that's not where you're being called to move. Maybe it's called to do um, some more lifting, walking, something else. And I think that a lot of times is the challenge too, is we just kind of grasp for something that we see somebody else do, and we set that goal for ourselves. So
Mhm.
when you mentioned, I offered the idea of walking. For somebody, if that is like walk, great. I want to be able to walk a long distance. The first step I'm going to take is to step a little farther, park a little farther, get a few more steps in. If that's not what's speaking to you for your movement,
Mhm.
that may be great for one person, but if that's not right for you, that's okay. Like
Mhm.
what does that look like for you? Um,
Mhm.
and I think that is an important component of goal setting, that we sometimes just use a blank, or we copy from somebody, and we don't really look deep within ourselves and our temperaments and who God has designed us to see how can we grow in these areas that's right for me in this season of my life.
Well, I like that just at the end, like what's right for me in this season of my life. Because even that holding of like how you used to move maybe worked well in your 20s that doesn't work in your 50s. And like there's tension there. So I hear you saying offer a lot of space for reflection and relationship with the Lord in this. I would love to hear any other kind of like out of the box practicals that you have around nutrition or movement for priests that's like those ideas. Because I'm like, yeah, what a good idea of like you need extra steps in, park in the back of the parking lot or walk around the school once. What are some others that you would offer to the priest?
Yeah. So a couple of things to kind of do the nutrition, since we talked a little bit about walking, is I know a lot of times a lot of priests, right, they get a lot of food, brought to them, where people
Yes.
are bringing things
Yes.
in, right, out of the goodness and generosity of their
Yeah.
heart. And so um, I think recognizing that and thanking people for what they've given to them, as that gift, and but not feeling the need to maybe consume all of that if that's something that's necessarily not a particular goal of theirs, right? If they recognize that this is something, for example, eating better is a goal that they're striving for right now. So again, what does that look like for me? Is it junk food? Is it late night eating? Is it finding out through a practitioner or a doctor or somebody if there's something more specific that they need to avoid eating or eat more of healthy? How can I do that every day? And then if it is, in fact, like just not eating as much sugary things, and you find yourself, people are bringing them to you, or you're at funeral get-togethers or weddings or whatever, right? And there's all this food, and you don't want to be rude. Um, that doesn't necessarily mean always that we have to eat all of everything that's been given to us, right?
Hmm.
We can acknowledge the beautiful intent of the thing given, the food, the item, whatever, maybe take a bite, and then know that this is where I need to stop. And then in turn, it gives an opportunity, if it's something that they've been given, to hand it over, maybe give it to somebody else, right? Can you share it if you're at a school with the kids or with your staff or with maybe somebody else that you're meeting with, that's coming in, you want to offer them a treat. And then so you've just been able to give too out of something that's been given to you. So kind of again thinking outside the box and other ways that we can share, maybe if it is food that we aren't able to eat. Um, does that kind of
Yeah.
But
And you actually said something at the very beginning that I think is good to know of the like finding out what your need is. And you gave a couple of like if it's a doctor, if it's a nutritionist or a coach, like having someone else help you make informed decisions versus I just need to cut out all this or I just need to do this. These kind of like big statements that are might not be true for you or might not be true for that re season and
Mhm.
looking into that. So I just want to note that of the, like if there's any hope here, it's like, oh, who can be with me in the journey and inviting someone else to be with you and making those goals and then move into some of those practicals.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. That's wonderful. For our last question, I would just love to hear just what encouragement would you like to offer priests who are in this and maybe wrestling with their health and what to do or feeling that shame and working through that.
Yeah. Um, it's normal, right? No matter who we are, no matter what vocation that we're in, we're all facing this challenge and of trying to be there for those that we love and we serve. So whether it's the religious life or priesthood or married life or even single, the people around us that we're serving, how can we fill ourselves up so as to pour out in love and service to them? And so in that sense, they're no different than everybody else, right? We're all facing those same challenges every day, um,
Yes.
but also we're all loved. So
Mm,
we're loved by our Creator in these challenges and through them, and in the people that we serve, and allowing ourselves to be filled with His love and what we need to fill ourselves, mind, body, and soul, to be healthy and to be all that God wants us to be. Then we are giving in the most genuine and loving way and place that is well intentioned for everybody around us. So
mm.
not alone and you're loved.
Yeah, what a gift. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your heart and just greatly appreciate it, Christine.
No problem. Thank you so much, Alex, for having me.